Name, as always, is Oladele Dosimu. I'm saying it as it's meant to be. Oladele Dosimu of the Emerging Alkebulan. As we're talking about the Awakening series, the Emerging Alkebulan series, there's another topic that we're going to be talking about today. We've got our guest, most important, our special guest, Dr. Negus Imhotep. He'll be introducing himself shortly, but also we've got my sister Unduku and my brother Faisal, who's part of the panel. Just to give you a little bit about the Emerging Alkebulan, we are about bringing Africans together. We're about decolonizing the mind. We're about networking, reaching out to diasporans all over the world, wherever you are on the continent, in the diaspora, we're all one and we need to unite. And what we're doing together is using this platform to actually reach out to people wherever you are, networking through business, whatever it is that's going to bring us together to unite, to actually work together. This is what we're about. This is basically what we're about. In terms of what the Imagine Capital stands for, if you go on the website, the mission and the visions are there. I'm not going to go into it for now, but probably a bit later before we finish. But all we're doing is just sensitizing the minds, making us think differently. We have been decolonized or be colonized for a long time. Now it's time for the emerging Alkebulan awakening. We need to wake up, guys. We need to basically take control of the story, take control of the narrative, and do what we need to do to work together to break the shackles that's still mentally holding us back. Without further ado, I'm just gonna go to my brother Faisal. He'll introduce himself. Then my sister will go, and then Dr. Negus Imhotep will introduce himself, and then basically we go into the topic, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Faisal Daniels. I still carry the surname of the people who owned the slaves. When my ancestors arrived here from Indonesia, Malaysia, and Java, and it's actually Afrikaans, so it's Daniel's slaaf. It's Daniel's slave. So Daniel's is, I don't know. I have to actually do something about that. But anyway, we are here to talk about actually decolonizing our lives. Our minds is just a part of our lives. And so maybe this is something that I have to do, right? Oladile has explained or outlined some of the big processes, the big existential rationale for the emerging Alkebulan. So I speak like an African, huh? People call it Alkebulan. Alkebulan is very close for me to, it's very phonetic. And I'm really excited about being here because, I met up and hooked up and just resonated with an outreach from Oladile because I've been saying and thinking the same things, and then he keeps on posting these things, and I reached out to him, I'm like, brother, can we do something together? Like we stop talking in our circles and so on. And this is actually this is why I'm here tonight. I want us to actually come up together with, so these are the big concepts. How do you localize them? How do you make them fit just a part of it, even in your life where you live? So your neighbors can see, but there's a different way of feeling as an African, because when we get into the meat of things, Africans actually feel very unnaturally about themselves. Unlike animals behave instinctively for their own survival. Africans, I don't know. That's a big question to be putting right in the beginning, so I'm going to leave it there. I do want to raise the question, though, right off the bat. If Bob Marley's been talking about decolonizing our minds, and if we are thinking that Africa is decolonized, actually, maybe I'm putting the question right. I'm actually wanting to know, do we really think that we are decolonized? Have we really decolonized our minds? As our cultures decolonized? I'm going to leave it there because I'm really excited to be sharing the stage and rubbing shoulders with somebody with the name Imhotep. Like in my research, Imhotep is quite a. It feels a little bit like deja vu, like time travel. I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks, Oladile.
Thank you, my brother. Sister Unduku.
Hello, everyone. Habari gani. It's good to be here again. Good to be with Dr. Imhotep and my brothers, Oladele and Faisal. Like you see, I now go by the name Duku Mulumba. They've always been my names, but I had a Western name attached to me, named after the Pope. And you know now, with my decolonizing of my mind, there's no way I want to be attached to anything to do with the Pope, because he's the one who told Spain and Portugal, go and civilize the savages. So I want nothing to do with him. So again, the name is Nduku Mulumba. I'm a co-host on Kumbukeni. We actually just came off from Kumbukeni talking about Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, and the imperialist. And I'm happy to be here talking about the Alkebulan. Before the invaders came, how did we live? Asanteni.
Okay, thank you, Nduku. Okay, Dr. Negus Imhotep. If you want to introduce yourself, let people know who you are, and then we'll just leave the floor to you, sir. Take it away.
Well, Asante San, I appreciate this particular opportunity uh, to speak. My name is Dr. Negus Sankofa Imhotep, and I am a native of, I was born in America, but Africa was born in me back in 1960 on September the 15th when I matrix of my mother's womb. I'm, um, I'm thankful for the opportunity and for my parents is in our home for us to come to realize who we are. Uh, I've done obtained my terminal degree from North Central University with the Doctor of Business Administration with concentration in human resources. My doctoral thesis was entitled Hiring Nonviolent African Ex-Offenders, a Phenomenological Investigation on Employment Discrimination. Uh, a master's was in Public Administration, concentration in Justice from Northern University in Vermont, and my bachelor's was in Political Science from Excelsior College in Albany, New York. I attended New Mexico State University coming out of high school. I was a student athlete. I played American football and ran track. I ran 100 meters when I ran. Hold Texas high school football from 1978 yards ever rushed in a single game, 509 yards on 32 carries and touchdowns. So that was my athletic days. But I'm really thankful for this opportunity because I remember as a child back in the 1960s, uh, I was watching 60 on a Sunday, parents in the living room, and I watched women being water hose and attacked with dogs, and folks were singing, "We shall overcome," and holding Bibles, and I saw police just all types to our people. And at the end of the show, I looked to my father, and my father and mother were on the couch, and I looked at him and I said, "Dad, it's not our fault that we're black." Dad grabbed me and my chest and lifted me up and looked right in my face and said, "You need to be proud that you're black." And I said, "But why?" And I saw tears in Dad's eyes. But the following week, him and my mother, they went and purchased Negro encyclopedias. And from there, as a child, I started the encyclopedia looking at A, and I read them all the way through Z. And later, I came back as a child at each household. so I'm a polymath. I read a lot of different books, and I also worked at the Houston public library in Houston, Texas for about 7 years. So they paid me to read, and that gives me background about who I am in a sense of my love for Africa. I was even ostracized on numerous occasions here in communities and youth and amongst my own family because I was too African. I was too black, and it scared a lot of people. And but after about Africa, it made me want to delve in more and more and more about who we are as a people. What really gets me, the topic that we're dealing with is pre-colonial. And when you say pre-colonial Africa, we can go back to antiquities. When we talk about pre-colonial Africa, before anybody from the outside came in and attempted to colonize Alkebulan, not Africa, because we look at it as a nasty Greek name. It's not the true name of the continent. Uh, one of my books that I read that gave me the most insight on pre-colonial Africa was a book entitled "The Wonderful Ethiopians of the English Empire" by Dr. Drusilla W. Houston. And she wrote this in 1922. She was a professor at Howard University. And in this textbook, it's pretty voluminous, but in that textbook, the summation of her story in this book is that there were two divisions of Ethiopia, or I prefer to say Kush, a Western and Eastern Kush, Oriental and the Occidental Kush. Because if you look at the earliest Chinese dynasty, the Shang dynasty of China, they were directly from Sudan. They came from ancient Nubia. That's why today, over China, you hear people Ding, Ping, Jiang, Shang, the same names that they still carry in South Sudan today. So that interconnection there and how our circumnavigated the planet. When we talk about ancient, we talk about trade world because Kush had trade routes over in India and into Southeast Asia and over all into Europe. We went everywhere. When a group of people have dominion, you don't need permission from someone to go where you want to go, especially when you have the means to do so. I looked and I saw that Kush had access ways on this, and they traveled in arms places around the planet. Matter of fact, the ancient Kushite civilization helped to develop what we call the Mesopotamian, the Tigris River, way back when the nation of Babylon and Nimrud, Elam, Akkad, all of civilizations were originated by Africa, came from the African continent. So we looked at that and then I constantly search and dig up more and more information. And when I came to understand some information about ancient Kush, there's a civilization in Kush called Abyssinia, called Ethiopia. The ancient city of Aksum is an old civilization. As a matter of fact, earliest kings was voted for the first nations on the planet that created coins, forms of currency. And in that, like I said, the silk trade, maize, millet, all the different types of resources that were cultural as well as mineral resources, as well as animals and people were moved around the planet. And they came off the eastern portion of Africa. Or, it's hard to remember, but I have to remember that I want to name the decolonized mind and use the name Alkebulan. And because that is the oldest known name for that particular portion of the world. Uh, in that same region of the world, there was another area that was close between Kenya and present day Kenya, and it was a civilization, Kilwa. Kilwa was no, it's mercantile. It was like a major city of the world where everybody came in trade, and because it was the silk trade, like I said, all types of resources that people use today were moved back and forth across the ocean by sailors who navigated from East Africa and back over into Asia. Looking at those areas, there's a place a little south of where Kilwa was, where I know some of you who studied civilizations of Africa, it was an area in Shona, better known as Zimbabwe. Those civilizations were there before Europeans had any idea where the continent of that of Kebulan even or is. So it shows that for a long time, commerce and trade and religion, arts, science, math, architecture, everything that you can think of. Continent of Kebulan had done it in the world late. Like you said, when the world came to the knowledge of things that was planted, the people of Kebulan was laid back because they've done it so thousands, hundreds of years, and thousands of years before mankind knew anything about what's going on. I'm just jumping around. So I was focusing on the East Africa for the moment, but
Okay, Negus, sorry to interject there.
yes,
Can you speak up a bit louder,
go
please, sir?
ahead.
'Cause, yeah, we need to
Yeah,
speak a bit louder.
okay. Well, I
Yeah, it needs to be a bit
was saying
louder.
that.
Yeah, they can't hear you, so you need to be a bit louder. Sorry. I'll let you
Okay,
carry on.
I'm in open space, and I just didn't want my uh, neighbors in the building and getting too much. They might
Okay.
but still that's all right. That
Okay.
civilization I was saying was the ancient civilization, East Africa, east of, and we know there's the mankind that came from that particular region of the world. I know in the country that they call Kenya, uh, in the gorge, where the uh, was came in and said he found some bones that was very old, a million, 2 million years old, where they stated that they found the oldest of humanity. And then I know it was probably 12 in Omo River Valley of Ethiopia. They found some bones that was even older there. So we see that's where mankind uh, emerged, this planet, and from that, uh, they domesticate animals, was the first to build different types of civilizations, and so we always have to look at that first and foremost as done and uninterrupted by any outside forces, because people from those regions, that particular region of the world, had the opportunity to do things because people been in other regions of the world later on to the freedom and the life that that the people on the continent of Alkebulan had. Uh, if you're living in a stone ice cold area up in Europe and above, they didn't have the action that the people in Alkebulan had. So other people heard later on about what was going on. And then we look around the time where we talk about where some of Frankfurt School of Thought talk about the age of exploration, and then they talk how in Europe they were looking to find spices and herbs and they did not have there on the continent, and from where they lived in Europe, they came up with this idea that people wanted to go because of they didn't have herbs and other things. But uh, from the book that I read by Dr. Howard French, and from looking at logic in the 1300s AD, it was a man named Mansa who came out of Mali, and Mansa Musa uh, had a caravan that was, I think it was 20 miles long, of camels with gold on each camel. And when he got into the eastern portion of Alkebulan and went into Saudi Arabia, he had much gold that it affected the economy. Those areas, gold was a precious resource. So we see other that they teach you here in the U.S. that Columbus and Vasco da Gama and Balboa and all of these people went out searching for spices. The biggest damn lie, they were searching for gold. They heard all that gold that Mansa Musa had, and they went in to take it. That was their plan. I I heard earlier in our conversation that Pope it was Pope Negus the fifth in 1455, Papal Bull, and stated that it would need uh, for Alphonse the Fifth of Portugal to go into the ocean of Africa and take African people and force into perpetual servitude in the world. So that shows you
Yeah, looks like it's frozen. Just bear with me.
it was just interesting. I had a lot of battles at that time in dealing with what I was going on in school right there in the mid '70s when the movie Roots came out here in the United States. I was dealing to a predominantly white school, and I was one of 5 black athletes there. We were called all kinds of mandatory names and all of that kind of junk. But going back to pre-colonial, it was extremely interesting to look at the ancient civilizations of of civilizations of Ghana, civilizations of Mali, the empire, not the nations today, but the civilizations of Songhai, the civilizations of Benin, were all powerful civilizations that people of the continent had their own governance, their own social structures that they had amongst themselves without the interruption of outside interference from Europe, Asia, or anywhere else. So I was looking at that, and for us to, as a people, liberate our minds and decolonize our minds, we need to go back and do our own reading, dig up information about who we are, dig up information about your identity, and look at what was, for instance, when we're talking about Benin. I know my brother Ole could probably enlighten a little bit about Benin, but the city of Benin's walls were constructed in a outrageously large area on the continent of Alkebulan. And as a matter of fact, there's some information from some men stating that the wall that was in was bigger or longer than the Great Wall of China. So that and this is what people constructed. Our people constructed in the motherland without aid of outside help. We didn't, because we have the intelligence ourselves. We have the intellect ourselves. We are the ones who understood the math and the science. And that's why today, I put it this way, some of the smartest people in the world is on the continent, on the Keebler. Some of the dumbest people in the world are some of the tallest, some shortest, some of the fattest, and some of the skinniest. It come from the same place because it's the origin of mankind, and and when man is who he or she is, who do you need other than your connection with the world, with your creator, with us? That's all we need, because all we need is inside of me. Because if we look inside of us and we work that way, we will continue to develop and become a stronger group of people. I'm a I'm just running around. My mind is running now, but I'm thinking about uh, people like here in the west portion of the world. When I think about Martin Delaney, I think Antonor Furman, I think about Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey was instrumental in my life because my grandfather was here in this city where I'm at in Des Moines, Iowa, back in the late 1920s and 1930s. Was a follower of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And Marcus Garvey had this idea that Africa was for Africans, those at home and those abroad. And he wanted Africa to unite, wanted to even come to the continent and even attempt to talk to the leaders of the nations to think about uniting, creating a United States of Africa, a centralized and all the 4 different nations today. If we had a centralized government and everything and all the resources and the wealth that was there, is there could be destroyed if we had leadership concerned about trying to be like their colonizers. The thing is, the mind has to be reawakened. Like I said, the mind needs to be washed. We need to wash all the dirt out of our mind about who we are, and then reinstitute good data, great information about who we are, and that will bring a change. Um, talked about looked at Songhai, another ancient empire in West Africa that was a powerful empire prior to colonialism, uh, and the Shada, Kita, the civilization of Mali. Uh, very little, with the exception of Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. I remember reading his book, Pre-colonial, and he spoke from the perspective of what he knew as an anthropologist. Um, the Frankfurt School of Thought, or people think from that Eurocentric, came to state that, well, he wasn't an authority on what he stated, and this. So everything here in this society and the way this nation and way the world is working today, if it doesn't come out the mouth from Europe, it's not valid. And we know that's a bunch of BS. That's from the pit of hell, what that might be. So the thing is, I'm so thankful for the people who helped nurture my mind and it's about the continent. And when I was at Texas Southern University, Professor Dr. Zuberi Wamba, who was in Tanzania, and he worked in the 1950s and early 60s for Limu, Dr. Julius Nyeri, and he was the one when I stepped in class that took me under his because I was so interested in colonial, not this, but looking at the political systems in Africa. He taught us about the Berlin Conference and the scramble for Africa in 1884, 1885, when European nations were all the only African nation that was at that scramble at that birth was Ethiopia. Ethiopians were aware of what the Europeans was planning to do. That's they was on their toes, as a matter of fact, because we see when the Italians came in 1896 and thought that they were over Ethiopia, there was a battle where the Ethiopians defeated the Italians in that, and that was the first time in contemporary times at that time where an African nation defeated a European power. Prior to that, we can go back to Hannibal, the days of ancient Rome. We see they lost that battle, and it really affected the whole plan. For instance, a nation like Kush, Abyssinia, that same place, they didn't have the military weapons that the Italians had at the time, because the Italians the best kinds of weapons that they could have and fight in a war. But the Ethiopians fought seriously hard to defend their nation. And as a matter of fact, I remember reading an article the emperor at that time, uh, Emperor Menelik II, the European journalists that was saw the battle, and they were fighting, and as a matter of fact, they came to Emperor Menelik II and asked him how was it possible, and he recited in the book of Psalms, the sixth division, where it says, uh, Egyptian princes come from Egypt, shall stretch forth their hands unto God. And he said, we didn't need all the military weapons that y'all have, because we had Almighty was right there with us. A lot of things that happened in pre-colonial Africa, go pre-colonial, and I said pre-colonial, going way back to antiquities, but
Yeah.
till the time of 1300s was when the Europeans came in and started sniffing around. But something to take in as well, the Europeans had anything to do with the transatlantic human trafficking that they the Arabs had a 500 to 600 year jump on the European on snatching up human cargo and taking them into Asia. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot of stuff. It's so vast, and so it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
One place about the things that have occurred on the planet now have occurred right there on Alkebulan. But my goal and my hope is that we could open the public, open up the minds on the continent, open up the minds of people on the planet, who we are, as
Mm-hmm.
we're not less than by no means. And never, ever, ever in my life ever thought I was inferior to anybody, any human being. And even though back in the day I was talking about my stature playing football in college, and I'm not a very tall guy, a big guy, but they couldn't heart and see how big my heart is. And my heart is pumping for a Keebler. A Keebler is why my heart is pumping today. Keebler is why my mind is, because I know I come from, and I have an idea, and I know where I want to come back. I want to go see a Keebler for myself.
Yes.
That's it's a must. It's a must. As a at my age right now, I tell a lot of friends and my wife, uh, it's not a buck thing. I would like to transition on the on Keebler.
Yeah, we're gonna.
I I want to go. My ancestors were were. I want to go. My ancestors were banished to go home and be in the place where we all started. You know, some I hear some people say, no, I have friends from different places, and they will say, oh man, you used to what's here in the U.S. Everything for you, la 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 la, and it's not about the thing convenient. I just want to be a place where I know the birth of mankind started. My my great 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 was a great 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 grandfather was snatched up, brought here to the Western world, uh, changed names, languages, stole their culture from them, and get different religions. Even though ever realize that they gave us, we still are the first people who generated or engendered religions because we are on the continent of Alkebulan to even think of create God in our mind. So pre-colonial Africa is a just subject and a vast subject to deal. But I've been talking a lot. I want to talk back because I now have some smart people here on this channel, and really what feels uniquely to me is to be a black man who was born in the U.S. talking to a brother from South Africa, from Kenya, and another brother from Nigeria, and I was born in Houston, Texas. Telling them and we talking the motherland. Right? I'm looking like, hey, y'all tell me what's going on. You know, you have that perspective because you were born there. Y'all lived, and all that way I live there is in my mind. That's the only way, right? Physically, I can't go there unless a ticket and a passport to fly. But only I can go there is in my mind.
We've come to take you back.
I want to go.
Yep.
Don't worry, you're coming back, Negus. We had a discussion about this. You're coming back because Africa is who we are. Alkebulan is who we are, my brother, man.
Yes.
Okay, Ndoka, you got anything you want to talk? You want to interject?
As
I can see you scrambling away there.
I this is my notes. As Dr. Imhotep is speaking, and he says he wants to go. I will mention to him as an invite that we are planning a trip in June of 2025 to go to Kenya, Tanzania, both the mainland and Zanzibar, to bring a few of our brothers from the diaspora, descendants of enslaved Africans, to the continent so that they can see it for themselves. But it's as we talk about the pre-colonial Africa, part of that journey will be cultural as well, and just taking note of what transpired, because that's a big part that has been covered up is the East African slave trade, right? That has, because they
Yes.
focus mostly on West Africa, and this is the thing about imperialism and colonialism and neo-colonialism. They have a way of making you think they're telling you the story by just giving you a bit of it, but in the meantime you don't realize that they're actually covering the extent or extent of their criminal activities. So they would take Africans from East Africa, bring them down Good Hope, and take them all the way to the Americas. And some of them were taken to Arab worlds, because not only were the West and the Europeans invading Africa, but also the Arabs invaded Africa before them and enslaved. We have Oman, the Empire of Oman, enslaving Africans in Africa, and that is covered up today. But the thing I was going to say is why, because a lot of people push back on this. A lot of colonized Negropean Africans, they push back on this learning of our history. Why are we talking about the past? Forget about it. Let's focus on now. You capitalist Africans. Um, we're talking about our past because we want to remember. We're talking about our past because for years and for centuries, we've been colonized mentally to think that we are inferior, to think that we're not capable, to think that we have no culture, to think that we have no inventions, to think that the white man is the only person who brought civilization. And so we're going back, those of us who have read a few books and realized that, wait a minute, there's a different story. Why do they not tell us this? To find out the whole story so that we can remember who we are. Dr. Imhotep mentioned before, as a child, not realizing who he was and his parents getting a book to remind him who he was, right? And that's what we're doing with our history. We're going back so that we can learn who we were, what we did to survive, bring back some of those skills, some of that knowledge into today, and see how we can build for ourselves and how we can stop following this imperialist way that we've tried it for years. It's not working for us Africans. The evidence is right there in front of our eyes. Africa continues to be underdeveloped. This Western way is not working for us. Democracy is not working for us. It's not meant for us. It was never meant for us. It's a culture of an invader that is forced down our throats, and it just doesn't work for us. And so now it's time for us to go back to who we are and rebuild and heal our community for the sake of future generations.
Thanks, sis. Faisal, you want to go?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that you know we have to try to speak to this topic in under an hour, in 40 minutes, and so on. And it's really an impossible task. I'm going to come back to this point. I think I'm going to end off with this point. But I wanted to say thank you for reminding me of a few things, for sharing a few new things that I didn't actually know. And also just for doing a really good job, like condensing into a good snapshot for people. An exercise like this, however, brings with it its own challenges and so on. And I think maybe let's start with, for me, the cradle of mankind, humankind. But let me preface that with so this is my part of the invitation, right? You know the whole notion of predictive programming when it comes to Hollywood in particular, where they prepare you like Star Trek. I mean, these things, this technology existed before Star Trek was produced in the 80s, right? Predictive programming. I think the invitation is that there are at least two movies, and both of their names they are apocalyptic. So, but the names both escape me. But I think the place during the apocalypse that is mentioned at the end of both these movies is, I hear the Cape of Good Hope is unscathed. So if you want to visit and there are two sites, World Heritage sites in South Africa, that is named the Cradle of Humankind, Big Brother Imhotep. If you are looking to come and rest where those who rested before you are resting, please, the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa is inviting you. Come and join your ancestors over here. Interesting. But so I visited. I spent 3 weeks with the traditional leaders of the Bushman, the First Nation in South Africa. And one of the days that we actually went to town as a group, it's just me, my then ex-wife, well, still ex-wife, and my two daughters, and then the eldest that we were with. And when we were there was a group of university, I think it was Berkeley University students. They came back with DNA results, and we could translate for them. And then we realized that not the traditional leader, but one of the elders, Opa, which is grandfather, Petrus Valboy, his DNA was 250,000 years old. It astounded them because they've never actually just like dealt with DNA that's 250,000 years old. And it does 250,000 years resonates with me, because if you look at the Sumerian tablets and the writings of people like Michael Tellinger on like 250,000 years. I mean, if we were going to go into antiquity, that's a good place to start, right? So that's the one part of it, and it makes me realize that we need to actually, I mean, people say you have to understand your history to know where you're going to, where you're coming from, etc. But actually, we're in a unique situation where we have to understand antiquity so that we understand our history, so that we understand why we are where we are, right? So for Africans, I think it's a bit more unique than that. And I think there's in 1492, the Pope issued two edicts. The one was for these explorers. These are people discovering the world. Come on, really? Like they came here with a spaceship and they explored. But anyway, so they've got this official edict, papal edict. The one says, "Oh, wherever you go, terra nihilus, it's no man's land. you go and take it and convert the heathens. And then they would write back to Rome, and they would say, but these people are taking very long, to become unheathened, like Christians, And then the Pope issued the second edict to say, homo nihilis. You don't have to convert them, kill them, they're not people. Much like today. This pause is for the audience, much like today. Because is it not true that Benjamin Netanyahu, his foreign minister, just the other day, last week, said, these aren't people, these are human animals. So the narrative is the same. The enslaved is still brown people. The people who are being killed and, ethnically cleansed are still brown people. And it's still the people that Chancellor Williams warns us about. The natural enemy of the black man is the Caucasian. We have to actually keep on saying this, even if there are Caucasians in our audience, because it's important for them to understand that they are still racist, even if they have not committed a racist act in their lives, because it is ingrained, it is tattooed on their DNA. It is how they could come here thousands of years ago and embarked on such a complete social engineering project and program that they have made us complicit in our subjugation, in our ethnic cleansing, in our genocide, in our vacuous cultural heritage right now, right? But that's not the worst. The worst is we think we are now free from them, and we are not, because the people in control of us are handled by our colonial masters. They are the handlers of the presidents and prime ministers and cabinets of Africa. And so there's no neo-colonialism. Why would you, they say don't reinvent the wheel and don't fix something if it's not broken. And colonialism is not broken. So those people who want us to believe that there's something called neo-fascism and neo-Nazism and neo-colonialism, they are lying, because what it does is it absolves them, because it's the same people, except now, it's no longer us. These are the neo-colonialists. It's the Chinese, they're buying up. It's colonialism. It's colonialism, it's fascism, it's Nazism, it's apartheid, it's discrimination based on skin color, based on tongue, right? And we are complicit in our own subjugation, whether it's at a mental level, refusing to consume new information, which is really old information, but because we've been indoctrinated, our aspiration towards whiteness is overpowering everything else. Our sense of logic, our sense of common sense, our sense of our existential rationale is overshadowed by this self-hatred, this black loathing. But what it does, and I should probably leave it here. What it does is it does illustrate to us probably the world's most successful social engineering project ever. Because we believe we are lazy. We believe we haven't built anything. We believe it's better off in London. We believe it is great to aspire to some level of whiteness and to roll your R's when you're speaking the Queen's language and so on. And we believe it fervently. And we will kill for this belief, and we will defend this white man with our lives. We will kill the black man to protect the white man. This is the success of the social engineering. So, but I don't want to end off on such a bleak note, right? But it's important, like for us as black people to actually look in the mirror and see ourselves. We are the ones who are keeping us here. We are the ones who are insisting on colonizing our minds. And we are paying lip service to this soundbite of decolonizing the mind, right? And as long as we're not serious about that, as long as we are just saying it, so long are we condemning the African child to this enslavement that we are experiencing today. It started thousands of years ago, right? But I do want to say to this, if we want to change anything about how you characterize a polity for when my baby, the one in Canada, is 7 years old. So let's use her. When she's 27, so I'm giving us ourselves 10 years, 20 years, sorry. How do we span the great schism, the chasm between antiquity and the Alkebulan of in 20 years' time? If we can't even talk about it in an hour a year, we need to have some sort of social engineering program in the arts, in law, in the economy, everywhere, right? Books, movies, the works. And we need to capture all of this and we need to make it fun and sexy for young people to learn about where they come from. And that's when they are going to be inspiring their kids like our fathers did us. I think I'm gonna try and stop there. I'm gonna like mute myself or something.
Yeah, Fazil, that was so deep. I could see Negus wants to go there. Negus, I'll let you take over. Go on, go and speak. You want to speak to that?
Man, yeah. Well, what somebody used to say, if you limit your mind, your your ass off. Okay, your mind needs to be liberated, so the rest of your body will follow. And looking at some of the stuff that stated to there's so much for both of you. Uh, I thought about uh, when people in this portion of the world came to find out, or in Europe found about one particular group of people out of Mali, the people known as Dogon, the Dogon people of Mali. They saw a star known as Cyrus, and from that they knew where the center of this planet was, because that Cyrus B be the smallest and the most dense star in the galaxy. And it wasn't until the 1950s to where European science uh, became knowledgeable. And in fact, it was one scientist who was an astrophysicist. I don't know. He wrote a book called Borka's Brain. And when he to this information that the people in Mali had about this, he stated no, it had to be some extraterrestrial that came down and told them where this star was. It had to be no, it was some European sailors that came into Mali. They didn't know nothing about this particular astrological event at all. And then professors knew from ancient days, because as a matter of fact, the star even aligns up in Orel, where the pyramid in Kemet, in Giza, the, the three that line up there lined up directly with the celestial. So our people have a very in knowledge of self when we come to understand who we are, this planet, and and even beyond the soul that we're in. Uh, just 3 years ago, my, my youngest brother, my uncle Alan R. Rudison, PhD, the conduit for NASA, wrote a book called "The Use Is in Us," and in uh, in totality, he showed how basic we as beings on this planet are nothing more than laptop computers who are mainframe in the celestials. He, and as a matter of fact, they have pictures in his book. Was a toxicologist. He's still living. He's a toxicologist and pathologist and an astrogeneticist. That's like him and Neil deGrasse got together on doing this particular book that NASA had them do, and they show a microscopic picture of the human brain. They have a macroscopic photo of the universe, and they put pictures side
Sure.
by side, and they're the one's smaller, the other one's larger. That's the only difference. So it shows you who we are. We're spirit, energy.
Hmm.
We're more than we see. We're more than the color of our skin. We're more than the texture of our hair. We are
Hmm.
gods walking here on earth. That's and we need to recognize that and we'll stand up and be the men and the women that we are to be.
Okay, Negus, can I just interject there a little bit? Based
Oh
on
yeah.
basically what Unduku said, what Faisal said, and what you've said, decolonizing the minds of the Alkebulan, the black people, it's been so
Mm-hmm.
deeply, like Faisal said, they've done a great psychology job on us, and you can still see, I'll say more so on the continent more than the diaspora. The continent is basically deeply, deeply entrenched because when I'm in Nigeria, I see it and I get frustrated. People who should know are even more ignorant than people in the diaspora. How do you think we can get away from, because if we do not get away from the colonized mindset, the religious indoctrination, the education, basically every system they put in place has got us to where we are today. A lot of the intellectuals, probably the worst ones, they're the ones who basically become the gatekeepers of the system. They're the ones that are going to be quoting and saying things. I put a post out there today, and I was just thinking about the economics of Africa. Our economy is controlled by a foreign currency,
Hmm.
which basically tells us that in order for us to trade with the rest of the world, they devalue our currency
Hmm.
so they can get things cheaper, and then we have to buy things from them based on their inflated currency.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we got intellectuals who would sit there and analyze this BS on TV and talk about it.
Yeah.
How do we get people to understand that every system that's in place in Africa today, no matter where it is basically there to hold us captive? How do we get away from that mindset? Because that's one of the biggest challenges we're facing.
Well, it's incumbent.
Before Negus, Doctor Imhotep, I want to make it a bit more fun for you. The same question. I just want to make it a bit more fun for you. I think
Okay.
what my big brother is asking there is how do we as a collective, as a growing collective, re-inspire, reinvigorate the African imagination so that we enable, allow ourselves to break through the matrix of the Caucasian womb that is, and it's like a cave, it's like a jail cell around us. I think that's it's the same question. I just wanted to use some of your words.
We look at it's something that is incumbent upon us who have the Afrocentric net to create schools on the continent and teach from that Afrocentric perspective, because the colonized mind is going to direct lean back Eurocentric mindset, because just like Ola told me, a lot of people on the continent of Africa are not are asleep in comparison to some of the people who are from the diaspora. So that's one way of doing it, because there has to be a re-education. The like Dr. Carter G. Woodson here in the 1930s called Miseducation of the Negro in America. He wrote it in 93. If you take the word Negro, put African American on it, it sounds like he wrote it just 10 minutes ago. Because if you were really educated, you wouldn't have to come to your oppressor to ask for employment. I need a job. No, I can create my own, create a business, so I can help employ my family, my people. We have to educate ourselves, looking for a centric education. Some of my from Nigeria in school in Kenya, like, oh, one guy from Nigeria, I was at Texas Southern University. I mean, he was like, oh, I don't get my laundry done in Nigeria. I send it to England. They can do my laundry in England. And then so I said, well, you're a this individual to send your out of the country, so some
Lost Imhotep's connection there. I'm just going to refresh it, see if we can bring him back. Just bear with me, please. Just bear with me, see if I can get him back. Undiko, if you wanna keep talking while I just refresh.
I was going to say, language is important, right? Brother Faisal mentioned neocolonialism. That's a term that was coined by Baba Nkrumah, and he coined it to describe and to help us understand that this thing we were calling independence was not quite independence, because we were still under the control of Western nations. So neocolonialism is where what we are currently living, where they are not actually ruling us. We think we are independent, but they are controlling everything we do. They're controlling our economy. They're controlling our culture. You have Baba Imhotep saying someone wants to send their clothes to Britain. That's culture, right? So neocolonialism is when what the West is doing now, when they don't need to rule us, they're not ruling us, but they're controlling everything we do. We cannot build our economy without their input. We cannot be ourselves without their input. We cannot educate with our own styles. So Baba Nkrumah created that word so that we can, because you have to identify the problem in order to fix it, right? And therefore you have to have a word to call it. And he said, we were colonized, yes. They were ruling us. They were actually on the continent and we were under their government.
Yeah,
Now they
I
left and they're controlling us from a distance, and that is neocolonialism. So that's what that is. Very different from imperialism, because imperialism is them controlling us in groups, right? The Commonwealth. A bunch of us celebrate the fact that we're the Commonwealth.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I just want to say that even though Baba Nkrumah came up with this phrase, as a political scientist and as a student of international relations, I think I'm going to stick to my guns because change, especially polity, all the acts of human beings is fluid. And so change is inevitable. But the system and the structure of it, nothing has changed, right? So it's only mutated, it's only matured, it's only become what it is now, but it's not something new. The machinations, the dynamics, the logistics may have changed, but Macron, up to 6 months ago, still controlled the entire Benin, especially around the economy, in particular around the economy. In fact, Benin and most of West Africa is still paying almost like reparations to France. So we are not free. I have mentioned this before in South Africa. I went into the streets in the 1980s. I threw petrol bombs and I burned stuff because I couldn't bomb stuff. But I was shouting, freedom now, freedom in our lifetime. And what the ANC brought us was democracy. And this democracy that they gave to us is not simply foreign, Big Brother Imhotep. In terms of the South African context, it is also foreign in terms of the Alkebulan context. It is a democracy that Thabo Mbeki brought from the University of Sussex, where he learned how to smoke really good cigars and drink single malt whiskey and have this, pipe that looks very British. When he came here, he could hardly speak Xhosa, his mother tongue. And for 30 years, next year it'll be 30 years, they have insisted, and this is part of the problem, they have insisted on an education system that was born in the United Kingdom. And it failed. They brought another system, also from the United Kingdom, failed. Brought another system from Australia. And Australia is the United Kingdom in the East, right? Failed. Still failing today. They have brought down the pass mark from 50% to, wait for it, 30%. They are growing idiots in my country.
They're everywhere.
So yes, the point I'm trying to make is then we celebrate when Paul Kagame says not a single African needs a visa to come to Rwanda.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's 50 years late, brother. If you want this thing to be powerful that you are talking about, if you want no visas to be powerful, bring with you on stage 50 more presidents of Africa. That's powerful.
Yes.
Because what does it mean that I don't need a visa to go to your country? I shouldn't need a visa to go anywhere I'm not a foreigner in Africa. Why do I need a visa? But you see, we are selecting people as presidents and prime ministers and leaders in our country who do nothing for their people, who build nothing for their people, whose highlights are the trips overseas to go and take pictures with the likes of Macron, Trudeau. I mean, this guy that's 1 foot in there where you are, 1 foot in the grave. What's his name? Old Joe, Sleepy Joe. So yeah, in Africa, we've got the blue light brigades, but if Sleepy Joe calls, we put 50 African presidents, powerful people in a bus, like tourists. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Some noises are changing, including Paul Kagame, and I'm dissing on him for this because I'm wanting him to know that it's not enough. It's too little, too late. But don't stop now on my account. It's sort of a happy discontent. Yeah, some things are happening, but let's not be okay with the crumbs, because these are crumbs. These are things that should have been in place 50 years ago. I'm not going to celebrate it. I'm going to celebrate when I can drive my car from Cape Town to Cairo without needing a visa. So yeah, my whole point, I think, is always going to be the African child. Has anyone in this audience contemplated the mind of an African child? You must remember, most African kids are malnourished. I'm not talking hunger. That's part of our reality. Malnourished because we eat the same thing. We call it staple food, maize, for instance. It's per region, right? All day, every day. And yet, at every so often, you have these two girls. They design an internal combustion engine running on pee. You have these two other girls from Kenya, actually in Duko. They design these X-ray glasses for hikers and people who are going out and they take a fall in the mountains and they put the glasses on and they can see if there's a break or not. So imagine this African child is actually fully, completely free, eating when he's hungry, good, nutritious food, and so on and so on. That imagination is the imagination of antiquity when Africa led the world in all sciences. This is my hypothesis. I'm positing it as a hypothesis. You know. What do you think?
I what you just stated, because that is in the appropriate direction. Is remember reading that from antiquities until 1960, the continent of Africa fed the planet, but 1960 was that of flag independence for a lot of nations on the continent, and things turned around. They knew that losing a few things that they could just rape and take away at ease. Good friend in 1988, Sipo Metebili, he Soweto, and he was bona fide ANC man, and we took political science, and he was RC and I was PAC. You're from Texas, and you talking PAC? I said, yeah, because PAC wants to be free. ANC is just like the local NAACP here in the United States.
Yeah, you got it.
The same kind of men.
Yeah.
And who want the freedom are not going to ask for it. They're going to take it. And that's what happened. That's why I remember just this summer, I was a coach for some Mandela fellows that came to Des Moines, and they were at Drake University, and the young men that was business on the continent were here to try to get the technology they thought they could utilize back to the motherland and do their work. And at the same time, I'm a coach, but I'm to be of the complexion that doesn't have protection in this country. And they, some of them, they knew they talked to me because they said, Dr. Negus, he real brother, but when the white folks came in with money, they would leave me in the New York second and run and lead to them. Oh, how can I get something that I can take back home and make my business better? Like one little sister, she was from a place in I think she was from Chad. She was from Chad, and she was just like, she just dropped motivation when she saw somebody else that complexion.
Wow.
Has protection.
Wow.
And didn't have protection, so she left me. I got through with them in their conversation. She came back towards where I was standing, and I left her there. I walked away from her, and they don't understand why. So it's just it's the socialization of white supremacy and that racist or the why those in the relation that it is. And I don't not like to use a lot of expletives, but I'm gonna tell you this way: supremacy.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
I'm with you.
because it's messing up everybody. It's
Yeah.
even messing up them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They think that they're superior
Yeah. Yeah.
when they're
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm so with you there.
That's a good T-shirt. That I'll make that T-shirt for the summer
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'll wear it all across.
with a fist, a nice black fist.
Yes. Yeah.
Black as a
Okay.
crayon.
Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm just thinking here. We've talked about these things, and I'm sure that a lot of people are listening to what we're saying.
Mm.
My frustration, and I'll say my frustration is we hear all these things, and the ones that are gonna listen are gonna listen. The one who are sold out are sold out because not everybody's for this journey. Not everybody,
Yeah.
because as I've been doing my post for the last year or so, I've just
Yeah.
realized that some are just too far gone. They're just
Yeah.
gone. In as much as you say it, they're not gonna get it. And when you
Yeah.
say it, they're the ones like one of my posts I put there. They're the ones basically who are gonna fight on behalf of the oppressor, fighting their own people on the
Mhm.
oppressor's behalf.
Yeah.
So my thought is, how do we get away from it? Because for the ones who are willing to learn, listen, how do we bring them along? Because basically we've got a massive work to do. This is our work. This is basically our work, our life work, guys. That we need to actually get those who are willing to think differently. Because for us to get from where we are to where we need to get to, like we've all agreed, we need a mindset shift. It basically is a mindset shift. It's basically throwing away what you've learned to relearn, re-educate. How do we
Mm-hmm.
get people from where they are? People who are open-minded, and that's another thing. We need to be open-minded. We need, guys. I'm gonna say this: everything that we've learned in the past has been a lie. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is, if you look at the basis of how everything was built up, it's been built on deception. It's been built on rape. It's been built on stealing. Everything that they've built, the religion has been, cornered. It's been basically bastardized. So they've basically built everything on a lie. So yeah, that speaks to it. So the fact that we
Walter
actually,
Rodney.
how do we actually get to people, let people realize that we need to decolonize our minds, man. It's what that needs to be done. The wealth that we're building, the capitalism is actually racist. For those who want to hear it, I'll say it here categorically. Capitalism was built
Absolutely.
on is basically built on our blood, on the blood of our brothers and sisters. These guys,
Yeah.
they basically had nothing. If you look at the history and read and read and read and read, and so many of us want to participate in this cruelty. Fair enough, we have to survive, we have to eat.
Mm.
We gotta feed ourselves. But there's gotta be a better way. There has to be a better way. Because we cannot participate
Yeah.
in the same systems that's still holding us captive today in the world, in Africa, and think it's the right way forward. Because at the end of the day, all it does is elevate some people and leave majority behind. It's basically the systems are survival of the fittest, and not everybody can
Yeah.
be on the same plane. Some of us are consciously just can't do it. So, my brother, how do we? This is questions to every single one of us. How do we think we can go from where we are, for those who are willing to be part of this journey, to move them to where they need to be? I'll go with Dr. Negus first, and then the Faisal and Nduka can go.
Well, first and foremost, since you're looking at the capitalist mindset, we need to look at uh, Dr. Cedric Robinson, who wrote a book called The Black Marxist, and Dr. Robin D.G. Kelly out of UC, who had an in-depth knowledge on social capitalism, because that's the only capitalism that there is. It's racial. They modify people of African descent so that we're the capital here in this Western world. I tell a lot of the students here in Iowa get all happy about their tractor, international harvester tractors. I said, hell, that's who we were. Our ancestors were the tractors. We were the ones that planted. We were the ones that dug, harvested the and there was no machinery. It was us.
Mm.
We need to come to realize they know this to be able to say, hey, I have an idea or a way that I can learn what has been going on. And it has to deal with the redesign of the African mind for our little children, like stated on the continent of Africa. Here is the same way. They got access to a lot of different foods, but these people eat a bunch of junk, a lot of chemical stuff that sucks. Most of my friends from the continent of Africa, when they come here and they taste the meat up here, they say, "Oh my God, what is this?" You know, because it's everything here. You got more drugs in the meat here in the United States than they got on damn street selling the dope. Your food is doped up. So
Yeah.
if your food is doped up, your mind is messed up.
Ooh.
We're not eating stuff
Yeah.
fresh like I did when I was a boy. When folks were more rural minded, we grew our own off the trees. We ate the fruit from we ate our own. We didn't go to the store for that. My father would kill a cow and everybody in the neighborhood meat, or somebody in there had a goat and come together and eat. You know, in comparison to today, you run in the grocery store and money at somebody. They give you some food that's been in the ground with chemical uh, uh, fertilizers, and they want to go crazy. It's sickening. That's why so many people here, so many forms of cancer, because of damn chemicals that's going in their body, and that those are going through our minds. So it's crazy, man. Like I said, change our way of thinking and to divert and go back ways of our ancestors. And if we need to go back to our looking at the way ancestors did things in the past, and try to move on from there, because I think that's the only way we can really move forward.
I'm in complete concurrence, complete agreement, big brother. And again, I would like to remind ourselves that whatever we are experiencing today as the lived reality of Homo sapiens, apparently it's Homo sapiens sapiens now, double sapiens, because we're becoming more sophisticated, more civilized, more barbaric, and so on.
Yeah.
It is all in support of the ultimate project, social engineering project, and therefore the world systems. If you take capitalism is antithetical to the Alkebulan. The way we do business is based on the principle of Ubuntu. Capitalism doesn't allow for Ubuntu. In fact, Ubuntu will strangle capitalism. It will die a fast death, capitalism. And then you look at the smart black dude in the smart car and the smart suit, and he's like, yeah, I love being a capitalist, all defensive in capitalism, pointing to the success of the social engineering project. Fair enough. the distance between him and his roots of Ubuntu is, a couple of lifetimes. I think the one point that's been sitting with me, but first let me say this, because I more or less always say this, and you have basically reminded me now. When you look at the world and you're trying to make sense of it, and if you switch your TV off for long enough, for a year or two, you find you have more time to think, right? And if you garden and you water the garden, you find you are more connected to this energy that you were referring to earlier. You realize that the financial system is broken because it's based on something inhumane called capitalism. And you don't have to go far. You just have to look out the window. I mean, you could just look in your bank, right? I normally have this, like this example. There's a three-way stop not too far from my house where we have some of the richest people and some of the poorest people in my village. So he comes past with a Jaguar, and he looks at the guy with the torn clothes at the four-way stop or three-way stop, and he acknowledges this poor guy with the torn clothes by looking dead straight ahead of him and going into his secure complex, etc., etc. And the poor guy acknowledges him by cool car, blah 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 blah. Like we are normalizing this because the driver of the Jaguar thinks it's normal that guy should be there, and that guy thinks it's normal that there should be somebody with a Jaguar, driving past, and so on and so on. And so I'm saying this is by design and desire. But if the design and the desire for the social engineering project is for full and complete unfettered control over people, then you're not going to be able to do that just by a broken financial system, just by capitalism. You have to break the schooling system, and they broke the schooling system right off the bat during the earliest days of the Industrial Revolution, when they took people's hands out of the soil and put them in lines so that they can go into classrooms when somebody says they can, keep quiet when somebody says they must, speak when somebody says they can, go to the toilet when somebody says they can, listen for the bell for when you can eat and sit and go home, so that this is not for people. This is to prepare them to go in factory lines, to go in when it's time and listen to people and ask to go to the toilet and so on, So,
Yeah.
so that system is broken. And of course, I mean, they put chloride in the water because this bit here, the pineal gland, is the thing that connects us esoterically to everything else. But it becomes calcified with chloride or fluoride. They put it in our water, in our toothpaste. This is the best quality water in the world. Cape Town is the best quality water in the world. It competes with, wait for it, European standards, because they want us to be disconnected. They want us to be disconnected. So this is the water. The water is completely messed up. The soil, you've described it. There are trace elements of glyphosate at both poles, right? So the food system is completely broken. In America, where you guys are, it is illegal to grow food in some states in your backyard. It is illegal to harvest rainwater. If you're not going to pay for water, you can't harvest rainwater. I mean, some of the most illogical things are just accepted. So it's not just us who are fast asleep, it is also them, because over them they have their own evil sources or forces, So I wanted to end off by saying, everywhere in the world there's an agreement that if we went back to the ways of the First Nations, the first people, the Bushmen, the Maori, the Aborigine, the Eskimo, the Native American, 99% of the world's problem would be solved. But we have been saying this for 100 years. Are we ever going to go back there? No. In South Africa, we had our second president was this British gentleman who can't speak Xhosa. He put which is a Bushman motto on our national logo, the country's national logo. And then for the rest of it, most of the Bushmen are now, the language is completely gone. When I was there were 6 people who could speak it. It's completely gone. No school infrastructure to be taught in a mother tongue, in their mother tongue. No lifting these people into their proper place. These are my ancestors that I'm talking about. These are the people that would guide us from here into Eden, because when they were hungry, they would take their hand and take something and eat it. Now we are doing what people in the West are doing. We are waiting for 8 o'clock so we can have breakfast. Doesn't matter if you're starving from 7, you're waiting for 8 o'clock, breakfast time. And then you're waiting for 1 o'clock and you're waiting for 6 o'clock tonight. So we are doing all these illogical things for the sake of being civilized. And right now we are at the pinnacle of civilization and at our most barbaric.
Yeah,
This is my point.
to be civilized apparently is to know how to treat your fellow human beings well, to have a good education system, to have a good economy. So I wouldn't say we are civilized. In fact, I think we have gone there. But just to show an example of how that simple lifestyle is what we need for a healing, during the COVID-19 quarantine, the earth showed us that we needed to stay home and not be a part of it for it to heal. The earth showed us that it didn't want the cars that we were driving. The earth showed us that it didn't want, like, literally, when we were inactive as far as activity as we do it today, the earth started healing. The ozone layer started healing. And that should be something like what we see in front of us. Nature, our ecosystem, should be the way we understand if we are doing the right thing or the wrong thing. The weather telling, like, because nature speaks to us. And so I agree with you. We need to go back to that simple lifestyle, and which is what myself and the you brothers, I know you're doing this, but part of that is us coming together, that communalism, right, and getting rid of individualism, coming together, putting our monies together, buying land on the continent and everywhere where Black people are. We buy that land, we start farming ourselves. We go back to raising our own animals so that we're not eating that tasteless meat that has chemicals in it. We go back to being together and caring for. And by the way, Dr. Imhotep, you're right. When I first came here about 20 plus years ago, that was an experience. I ate the chicken and I couldn't believe how tasteless it was. And to this day, when I go back home, the meat is much tastier. But we have to go back to a place where we start caring for each other, where we're building communities where mental health is a priority. When we see people not doing well in the community, we come together, we give them an opportunity to talk. In the current society, you're ignored when you're having issues. You're actually left alone when you have mental issues, and that's worse for us. And that mental trauma is carrying on in generations, which is why we are the way we are. The other thing I want to say is I agree with Faisal. Ubuntu and capitalism are opposing forces. So
Yeah.
if they are opposing forces, and we know we are Africans born of Ubuntu, and that is our way, then we have to get rid of one of them, and it's not going to be Ubuntu. Not in my lifetime. Not as long as I am alive and I have the strength to punch you in the face if you try to sell capitalism to me. And I'm sorry, that's how it is for me. To get to liberation,
Mm.
you have to get rid of whatever is in the way. It means kicking you out of the way, I will kick you out of the way if you're in the way of my liberation. It's just as simple as that. African liberation means African lives. There's no time for accommodating Western emotions and Western culture. That's another thing we need to stop. Accommodating Western emotions and Western culture. Being in a room and not wanting to be your African self because you're worried about how you're going to offend the white man. This lady, Baba Imhotep, that you were talking to, who is accommodating the white man and running to him, only to be reminded by the white man that, guess what, you is black. I don't help black people, and then coming back to you in humility because they've been reminded who they are. We as Black people, we as Africans have to start prioritizing Africans. I gave the example on Kumbukeni earlier this week in Tanzania, where at a resort, some fellow diaspora Africans went to Tanzania, born in America, went to Tanzania, and the wait staff served the white people before them. And when they raised the issue, the wait staff, African people, told them, well, you know, they're special. You're one of us.
Mm.
We have to do better. We prioritize us. Any restaurant you come to
Mm.
where I am, or I'm owning, or I'm running, you as a white person will probably be served last. I'm just saying, we're prioritizing us.
Um, you know, I listened to that where you spoke during this COVID-19 pandemic when it was shut down. I remember looking on the world news, and you saw animals coming into cities, uh, sheep, goats, all different kinds of are wild animals, undomesticated animals, start walking the downtown areas, and we're in major cities because the animals said, "Oh, something happened," and these people have shut down for a minute, and they intruded and came back into certain communities, certain places where they accustomed to traveling anyhow, where has come in and debated and urbanized and messed up uh, for the sake of progress. Uh, create our own mindset, own ideas, not ideas from others, and to create within our own. And when that happens, we'll see Ubuntu prosper and flow like the Nile River flows, continually to flow and prosper. And I think the fact that once we realize we come to the point where we educate our own. I know I'm older than everybody on the panel, but y'all might have more time than I. We don't. I might live to be 150. you know, and
Very true.
still be around. And but the thing is, in all essence, it's not about just being here in the flesh because we're everlasting to everlasting because we are eternal beings. And once we connect that, we'll live above all the rest of this mess that we're entangled.
Mm.
Because scare people when we get spiritual, when we go back to the way of our ancestors.
Yes.
When I walk into the building with white hair and dreadlocks, and they're looking for somebody in the sky, I mean, and then look a certain way, I'm not here to somebody. I'm here to live the life that was given to me. And if I'm not here to make any other body comfortable to live my life.
Mm.
And matter of fact, somebody said, why you let your hair grow like that? I told them that happened when my hair got nappy. And I'm gonna let it happen.
Wow, I like that. That's a great quote. I love that.
Not dreadlocks, they're spiritual locks. These
I like
are sacred. They're sacred. That's where the priests in the olden days, all over the continent of you saw wore locks, and the pharaohs wore locks. So that's who I am. I'm a spiritual man walking in this earth.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm just
Powerful.
gonna let me sum it up. Basically, today we've talked about pre-colonial Africa. Okay, what happened, where we are, and what's happening in the world. For us Alkebulans, for us Africans, basically, A lot of us don't want to accept it, the fact that the system we're following is broken. It's actually broken. It's not the way forward. We're brainwashed into it, we're indoctrinated into it, and we think that's the only solution. But there's an alternative, and the alternative can only happen if we decolonize our minds, re-educate ourselves, and be, like my brother said, be spiritual. Somebody said in the last broadcast we had, we're in a spiritual warfare where nature is being turned on its head. We're basically being bamboozled with things that are basically not enriching us. We're not being enriched. Our body's been messed up. Our psyche's been messed up. Our food's been messed up. The soil is everything. We basically turn everything upside down just to make money, which is basically devilish.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't see it that way because obviously they're participating in the system. But
Yes.
thus far, just look around you. Look around you. Are we getting healthier? Are we getting sick? Are we getting sicker? Are we happy? There's more depression because everybody wants to fit into the system just to belong. There's something missing. And one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing is basically we're all here, all four of us are here because we know that something is just not right. There's something that has to be better in terms of what we're doing in the world. And as long as we keep participating in this, we're complicit to it. We have to, as Alkebulans, we basically Africa, God has just given us everything we need. We've got everything. Everything. The earth, the people, the plants, the herbs, you name it. The land, we have everything. And we're taking ourselves away from that. To a system that's imposed on us. The moment they came in, the moment they set their foot onto the Alkebulan, is when things went wrong. We lived, we survived, we didn't need much. They basically, like you said, Doctor, you're talking about lack. The system we have right now is based on lack. Ubuntu is not based on lack. Ubuntu means I am because you are because I am. That means everybody looks after each other. We feed each other. There's no lack. Mansa Musa, he basically messed up the system because he brought lack. He brought basically something that he basically destroyed the whole system because there was no lack. And as long as we keep feeding the system of lack, we're going to have problems. And that's basically what capitalism means. Somebody has to feed off somebody else, and somebody is going to be down the bottom basement being messed up. I'm saying this, yeah, go on.
I wanted to say that in a way, the system is broken. The system is working exactly the way it was created.
Oh, yes.
And for that purpose, the thing is, we have to get our system and do our own. That's what really needs to be, because I hear a lot of people here and they talk about, oh, the criminal justice system is broken. Hell no, it's not broken. It's locking people up because we locking people up on the out of a nation that only represents 4.5%, maybe 5% of the global population, on 25% of the people up on this planet. So if you live in the West, you live in a prison nation. You're in a prisoners. And that's just what's going on today.
Yeah.
And it was engendered that way. And that's why it's working exactly the way they want it to. That's why we don't look for reform. We need to rap and create our own. That's what it's about. What they do, we do, and what we need.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, you know what? I'm not gonna add to that. You summed it up, Dr. Imhotep. I think that we're gonna leave it with that. That's the last words from you, guys. Thank you very much for this session. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed myself. We've shared knowledge. Thank you for coming, Dr. Imhotep. Hopefully we can do this again. I'm looking forward to it. We're all looking forward to it, my brother. Thank you very much.
Yes, man.
Guys,
I truly appreciate. Just appreciate.
Thank you very much. Guys, this is about decolonizing our minds. It's about decolonizing. It's about finding alternative to the system they put in place. It's not broken. It's working the way they said it's meant to be, but it is not the way. We need to. It's a spiritual battle that we need to fight. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we got another one coming up in a few months, but we'll let you know. But they're coming thick and fast. And the next one's basically going to be talking about our mindset. You know, we're talking about mindset a lot, and okay, the next session is going to be our mindset. How do we sort the mindset out? Because basically, as diasporas on the continent, diasporas mainly, I'll say continental Africans. That's basically where the biggest battle is, the mindset. So we need to decolonize our minds, guys. Thanks for being there, guys. I really appreciate you, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks for your time, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
Ubuntu.
Thank you very much. Ciao, everyone. Bye bye.
Ubuntu.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers.